If you've got an electric vehicle, you might be running on an off-peak rate, 7 pence, something along those lines. It absolutely astounds me that many people don't realise that they can run their home at the same price. Today, I'm going to be breaking down how you can do this using leveraged technology like the stuff behind me. Let's go. First, I just want to clarify a bit of misperception around EV car tariffs. Most people just think they're for your electric vehicle. Many people don't realise that the mass majority of electric vehicle car charging tariffs, not all granted, but they offer your home cheap electricity overnight or at different windows during the day. And that's the cheap electricity that we want to try and leverage. So what you might be doing currently is charging your car on that off-peak rate. And you might be thinking, I'm going to pop the dishwasher and the dryer on, and you're trying to time everything around the home to move as much as you possibly can. But no matter how hard you try, you can't move everything. And that's where home battery storage comes in. But a little bit about that later on. So let me start by explaining how an off-peak rate actually works. So let's start with a standard tariff. Let's say 27 pence per kilowatt hour, 24 hours a day, plus your standing charge. Your price is exactly the same whether you buy electricity at 1 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. However, with an EV rate, it actually leverages the price alongside the active pricing on the grid. That's right, your electricity supplier actually pays different prices during the day dependent upon the energy mix on the grid. So during tea time, we burn a lot of gas, biomass wood pellets. However, overnight, we leverage a lot of wind turbines. During the middle of the day, we might use a bit of solar. This essentially creates an energy mix on the national grid. And what EV tariffs do is look at these cheap prices that are on the grid, either intelligently or on a weighted average basis. And that's what we want to try and harness. So when it's cheap on the grid, you're buying your energy, and when it's expensive, we're not buying anything at all. So your EV car charging tariff at this point in time is, say, 7 pence off peak. But what that also often means for you is your day rate is more expensive when you choose one of these tariffs. Let's say, as I mentioned, the standard price is 27p. I appreciate that prices are going up later on the year, but bear with me. Your day rate, like in my household, is a little bit over 30 pence. So this is where the home battery storage system comes into the mix. The idea being that when the energy prices are low, that 7 pence rate for example, it will vary person to person, postcode to postcode, but the idea being we then use the battery storage to charge at the same time as your car. So when your car's on charge, carry on using your washing machine and your dryer overnight, or in off-peak windows exactly the same. The idea being that your battery storage is also charging at the same time. What this means is, during those peak windows, 30 pence rate, that expensive period, your battery storage automatically meets the demand of your home supply. Thus, you don't need to buy an expensive peak energy, and you can load shift your energy price to an off-peak rate. And it does this through a CT clamp, reading what your incoming supply is doing. So let's say I turn my kettle on. Instead of that pulling it in from the grid, your battery storage runs in parallel. So it goes, hang on grid, you don't need to come in here at all. The power is then drawn out of the battery storage via the inverter and then meets that home demand. So your kettle effectively boils at the off-peak energy, despite it being during the peak period of time, because you've essentially got this great big barrel of energy that's been stored from earlier on when it was cheap. Now you might be thinking, well, what if I go over the maximum demand of the inverter size? Will it just cut out? That's not the way that battery storage works. What essentially happens is, let's say we hit the peak of what inverter and battery storage does, then all that happens is any excess can still be drawn in from the grid as and when it's needed. But so long as you've appropriately sized the amount of storage, so batteries, and the appropriate inverter size, effectively you can run your whole house on off-peak energy. So now let's give you a real world scenario and assume we don't have solar panels. Solar panels can definitely add extra into the mix, but let's keep it simple for the minute. For yourself, you're currently paying 30 pence a kilowatt hour, again, probably going up later on in the year, for your daytime, assuming you're on an EV rate, for your daytime electricity prices. What now happens is, effectively, your energy bills are reduced down to the price, providing the battery storage is big enough, to that off-peak rate. So your energy bills are cut down by a significant portion. This is where the maths of the situation comes in, and I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm definitely an electrician. However, if you're effectively paying 7 pence a unit, and let's say your day rate was 31 pence on an EV rate, well, essentially there's quite a wodge of a saving there. Now you might be thinking, it's only a couple of quid a day, but it's the reps and sets that the actual battery storage system does day after day after day. It's essentially going, I'm buying 7 pence, I'm buying 7 pence, I'm buying 7 pence. If I had a 10 kilowatt hour battery storage module with some inefficiency, so charging and discharging, because there will be some losses associated with that, of course, then effectively between about 850 and about 900 pounds a year, depending on the unit rate prices you buy. I appreciate there'll be some comments associated with that, but effectively you got 850, 900 pounds. Now, if you're paying a low enough price for the actual battery storage system in the first place, there's a good chunk to be offset there. So let's look at some rough figures. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm just going to break it down in really simple terms as I understand it. This bit doesn't also include standing charge, which is another consideration that things like solar credits can offset against, but let's just keep it simple for the moment. Imagine now I'm personally paying 31 pence per kilowatt hour for day rate electric. Not that I buy any, because I'm doing this currently. But that's £3.10 a day if I was to buy 10 kilowatt hours worth of energy. Effectively about £93 a month that I would be paying on my energy bill for my day rate electricity, which is, fag packet maths, about £1,100 a year in electricity price for my day rate. So now let's imagine I've got this battery storage system and it can leverage 7 pence overnight rate. It charges up overnight, fills its boot. So 10 kilowatt hours worth of charge is now 70 pence. Now reps and sets throughout the course of the month, assuming a 30-day month, that's about £21 that you'd be paying. So I've gone from 93 to 21. And again, as energy prices go up later on in the year, that disparity is quite likely to get a bit bigger. What does that mean your annual bill looks like? About 250 quid. Now imagine, to charge and discharge battery storage, the inverter needs power to convert it from AC to DC and DC back to AC. So there's a little bit of losses in there as well. It can be anywhere depending on the efficiency of the system. A SIG Energy side install like the one behind me or a Powerwall 3 is often a little bit more efficient than some of the cheaper brands. So let's say that's 10%. Let's go with the worst case scenario with this. That's about another 25 quid. So we've effectively gone here from £1,100, £1,200 a year in energy bills to like 250 quid. So there is a big disparity between the difference in the two, and that centre ground you go, okay, well if I put a capital investment up front and I say spend £5,000 on battery storage, return on investment for a kit like this might be 5 or 6 years. On the note of return on investment, battery storage is 0% VAT until April 2027, after which it's our understanding, subject to what the current government do, it will go up to a 5% VAT rate. Now ultimately, a little bit like driving a car in the first place, it depends on how you use it. That's assuming we use 10 kilowatt hours a day. That's assuming it charges 100% every day. And you might be thinking in the background, well, how long will battery storage actually last when I make my investment? This is something else to also consider. So with battery storage, it depends on the brand. Most battery storage modules will be warranted for about 10 years. Be careful of depth of discharge, which is how much is usable in the battery storage system, and also be careful of throughput warranty on battery storage. Most battery storage systems like the one behind me have a 10-year warranty. Powerwall 3, for example, also has unlimited cycles. So with that, if you're going, oh, actually, wait a second, I can save that good wodge of money and put it towards the actual investment. Well, what you know is, let's say it's a 5 or 6 return on investment and the warranty's for 10 years. I appreciate it's not, oh my God, this is a get rich quick scheme. That's not the case. But over time, this will make sense. And think about this as well. You've got to ask yourself the question, and I don't have a crystal ball when it comes to this, but will energy prices go up or will they be coming down? What we know is in July, it's quite likely to go up somewhat. We've just got to ask ourselves what's going to happen then long term. This isn't scaremongering, this is just honesty that comes with this. So if your energy price increases, you get this wodge that happens. It's likely to be bigger because, well, energy suppliers are saying, we really want you to buy it when it's cheap because it's really expensive for us to buy it when it's expensive on the grid. You'll be going, that disparity is quite likely to increase somewhat. You might be thinking, Ian, well done for highlighting that one, but what happens if that tariff price changes? What happens if there's some more volatility on the grid, which means off-peak prices rise too? And this is where people are doing a mixed portfolio of investment effectively, where they're adding solar panels into the mix themselves. Because if you're actually generating your own home energy, you effectively get that saving in perpetuity, and that's kind of in the bank. Battery storage ultimately does rely upon these grid pricing. But from what I've seen and the history so far, because ultimately history leaves patterns with what happens, they're really leaning into off-peak rates. Think about Economy 7, think about those storage heaters you used to get 10, 20 years ago in apartments that were running on electricity. They were still using off-peak overnight rates. Why? Because people don't use as much energy overnight. That's when they're naturally incentivizing people to buy it because it's cheapest for them to buy. Basically, heads they win, tails they win. The energy suppliers have always had it set up this way. They're not going to put themselves at a disservice. A word of warning on EV tariffs. Not all EV tariffs will offer your home the cheap rate as well. Some of them do say a fixed price of £20 or £30 a month and say that just charges your car and your home is at the standard day rate. That is something that exists out there. These incentivizations tend to take place alongside company car benefits and stuff along those lines. So just a bit of a word to the wise there to make sure that if you're thinking of having home battery storage, that effectively the rate also covers your home at the same time. And another piece of exciting technology that's coming onto the market, so if you've got a Tesla car, if you've got a Powerwall 3, and actually some of the other battery storage brands are thinking or doing this currently, is a thing called virtual power planting, which is where effectively they get some of this off-peak energy, and if you can't use it, they actually will send it out to your neighbours and pay you a premium. I'm going to be doing an upcoming video on virtual power planting and kind of how it all works. I know we've got another one on bidirectional EV car charging because these are new and exciting technologies that I'm really passionate about. So don't forget to follow along, like and subscribe because it would be really good to be able to show you all these technologies as time moves on. Going back to tariffs briefly, and something you should be aware of is that not all of these EV tariffs are the same. Now, earlier on, I mentioned about some of them not covering your day rate, but there are certain tariffs that are cheaper than others. And often they rely upon an intelligent connection to your car or charger. So just a bit of a word to the wise on this one. Double check before buying your car. If you've already bought it, you might be a bit snookered at this point. But if you've got a choice in the matter and you're kind of in that shopping phase for cars and you're kind of just weighing this up a little bit, double check with your tariff provider that effectively you don't need either a smart intelligent charger, like an Anderson for example, or Hypervolt, or that your car is actually intelligent and can make this intelligent grid connection. And what I mean by this is effectively your car can make a connection to your energy supplier, and when it's cheap it can choose to charge. Your battery storage system can then piggyback onto these times, and as a result your energy supplier gives you a lower price. So if you thought it was low enough already, often they'll lower it even further because effectively they can dynamically charge depending upon the actual grid price that's live at that point in time. It sounds really complicated, all this stuff, and you might be thinking, I'm not a big techie, but actually the setup of it, these systems are so mature now that it's kind of just okay, set it up, make a couple of setting changes, copy a code over from the Octopus website, and ta-da, it's all automated for you. It is a lot simpler than what people realise to get this all set up. So if you want to find a little bit more actually about tariffs, I did a video a couple of weeks ago on the channel. It was slightly before it all kicked off with the global economic situation, but I actually covered different tariff providers and how it all works with each technology. And let's say you had a heat pump in the mix and solar panels, how that would always kind of combine together. So you might want to check that one out. So if you use very little energy during the day, say 1500, 2000 kilowatt hours a year or less, then it's very, very hard to actually get a return on investment with battery storage, because A lot of the cost is actually in the battery storage system in the first place. So even if you buy a small battery storage module to be able to offset yourself, it often doesn't actually make a great deal of sense below 2000 kilowatt hours a year. Some people decide to do it anyway because they really want that like future proofing and energy resilience. So respectfully, I understand that that can always sometimes be a point. But in terms of like pounds in, pounds out, I often struggle to actually make that financially make sense. If you have a small system, you're thinking, I actually just want to do my little bit, or I want some grid independency, then maybe just have a look at solar panels by themselves, because ultimately they have a longer lifespan, 25, 30 years plus. And therefore the long-term returns on solar panels can often make a little bit more sense if you just want that bit of grid independency. So I appreciate that for people watching. So let's say effectively that you were using 10 kilowatt hours a day worth of energy, roughly speaking. This would be your inverter, and that would be one battery storage module, which would effectively be just about enough to be able to offset that energy usage for the course of the day. Most of the time, you don't need this much kit in order to be able to do it. It's actually a little compressed set that you would need. Everybody is different though. This is the whole idea of actually speaking with someone who knows what they're talking about during the design process, probing them with these types of questions and making sure you don't just get well, my computer says you should get this size of system, actually going, well, why do I need that size of system? How does this work? And how is this ultimately going to help me? Another little note actually with the SIG Energy side install, you can get bidirectional EV car charging as well. You're probably thinking, God, that's a lot to unpack. I've actually done, let's say, deep dives on each one of these. So bidirectional EV car charging, the SIG Energy side install, which is the product behind me, Powerwall 3, and a load of other good stuff on this channel as well. So again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks so much for your time today. Cheers.